This week, the HPT crowns a champion from the Chicagoland area at the Majestic Star Casino in Gary, Indiana. Over 570 players started on day one with the goal of becoming our newest HPT champion. As always, the Elite Nine sat down at our televised final table with over $170,000 waiting for the last player standing. Now the road to the championship is down to the final four, and still leading the way is our original chip leader, Bob Chow. The stage is set, the players are ready, and once again, life-changing money is on the line.
This is the HPT.
Sit right down, put on your poker face, you with the big dogs now. Better bring your best game, talk trash all you want. To me it's all the same, you won't leave with much when you come in second place. And I'm the one with the stack showing 7 to the jack. Gon' cry to your mama cause I'm sending you back. I'll be the last man standing with the money in my hand. I'll be the last man standing with the money in my hand. Last man standing with the money in my hand. I'll be the last man standing with the money in my hand.
Welcome back to the HPT, where this week we crown a champion from one of our longest running events at the Majestic Star Casino in Gary, Indiana, just outside of Chicago. I'm Fred Bevel, and with me is the class, brains, and beauty of the show, poker professional Maria Ho. And 24 HPT events have taken place here at Majestic Star since we started coming here back in 2006, and all of them have delivered nail-biting final table action. Over $170,000 is on the line tonight for one of the final four from a field of over 570 players. I'm excited to see how this one turns out. Let's take a look and see what's on the line tonight. The championship and over $171,000 going to the last player standing tonight. Everyone at this final table going home with a little over $48,000. Maria, that is a good parlay for a $1,650 direct buy. Here is the updated chip count.
Bob Chow still in the chip lead. He's been holding steady coming into this final table, and now at four-handed he has 6.2 million. Vu follows behind him with just over 5 million. Daryl and Bruce have plenty of big blinds to play with, but they will be looking to make a couple moves.
Blinds continuing on here, four-handed at 40 and 80,000 with a 10,000 chip ante. You know, Daryl on the one seat on the other side of the table here with just 23 big blinds. I learned from our reigning player of the year and your friend Greg Raymer that is a good 3-bet shoving stack size.
Definitely. That's a stack size where you still have plenty of fold equity, and also if you ever double up with that stack size, you become quite dangerous.
Bruce Knee's going to open up here to 180,000 with King 10 offsuit. Daryl quickly folds, and now we're over to Bob Chow, who looked at his cards a little bit early. He's got Ace King, again with the Ace King. We've seen Ace King a lot at this final table. First time in this week's episode, but last time, at least 4 Ace Kings popped up.
Yeah, and Bob's going to go ahead and 3-bet to 380K as we've seen him do before. And this is where I think Bob's image is going to help him, because although Bruce is on the tighter side, it looks like he is going to call Bob's re-raise with an inferior hand.
You know, 10 King, one of those hands that look really pretty, but easily dominated.
Yes, it gets you in a lot of trouble sometimes, and it looks like Bruce is going to be in a whole lot of trouble if a king does flop.
Here comes the flop. It is 10, 10, 5 with 2 clubs. Bruce has hit gin on this flop.
And Bruce has flopped trips here with King 10, but it's Bob who's going to continuation bet with the Ace King, and it looks like Bruce is just going to raise all in, and I really would like to see Bruce slow play, especially against someone like Bob, but I guess Bob doesn't really need much to call him.
It wasn't that much more for Bob to call. Bruce is all in, and he is about to see the bad news that he's pretty much crushed here, Maria. He's going to have to hit running clubs, I suppose, to pull this one out.
Yeah, I think that Bob was putting Bruce on a draw, and he called pretty quickly. He had a lot invested, but now he's going to need a lot of help in order to knock Bruce out.
You can't suck out all the time. Come on.
Queen of clubs would make it in.
Looks like Boo's even kind of rooting for Bob here. Oh, but that's going to do it. The turn brings a 10, giving Bruce quad 10s. And Bob starts cutting out the chips to match Bruce's stack here.
I will say, though, I've never seen someone like Bob Bob, who's actually still smiling when he loses a pot.
He's a happy man.
He is. Good for him.
Action this hand will start with Bob. He's going to lay it down. Now we're over to Bruce, who's already got the cap on his cards and the chips being staged. Looks like he's going to go ahead and lead out here on the button with King 4 suited. Makes it 175,000.
I'm glad that even King 4 is within Bruce's button raising range.
Close enough.
6-8 of diamonds for Vu. Vu loves those gap suited connectors. Let's see what he does here.
That's the only yellow you have there, Daryl?
That's it.
And I think he's asking Daryl how many chips he has, because if he 3-bets, he doesn't want Daryl to somehow wake up with a hand, and he might be committed to calling Daryl's stack, but it looks like he wants to 3-bet here instead of just call.
I call.
He is going to opt to just call here. And that's going to invite Daryl into the pot.
Man, you can't steal my line. What's wrong with you?
Bob's going to fold.
You can't steal my line.
And the flop is 8, Queen 5, all clubs, which means Bruce has flopped a flush, the second nut flush, in fact. And I don't see this hand going on much further past this flop, as Vu only has second pair, no club, and Daryl has nothing.
Unfortunately for Bruce, not a lot for the other players to play with. Everyone's going to check around.
Bruce is going to slow play and just check behind. The turn is the 3 of clubs, and this is why I don't really like slow playing flop flushes multi-way, because although it looks like Vu's going to lead into Bruce here, he's a little bit handcuffed now because he's afraid of the ace of clubs, and he's not going to get much value because once Bruce calls Vu's bet, Vu might not fire again on the river.
265.
And Daryl is going to get it away. We're on to Bruce now. Of course, Bruce checking the flop kind of conceals that he flopped the flush here, so he got a little bit of action.
He does, because Vu decided to try to bluff in this spot, but at the same time, if anybody else had another club out there on the flop, they might have come along from the flop bet.
Sure. River is a jack of spades, insignificant jack of spades. Bruce with the second nuts here. Probably isn't going to go anywhere, no matter what Vu bets. And I agree with my co-host to the left here. The action is probably done in this hand. But as it's been proven many times over the years on the HPT, I am again wrong. And he is going to fire 390,000 on the river here. What's he trying to do with that bet, Maria?
I think he's trying to get Bruce off of like a 7 of clubs or a 9 of clubs here, but unfortunately for him, Bruce has the second nut flush, and he is going to call.
Couldn't raise it.
That bet size just wouldn't do it for what Bruce has, and it's probably wouldn't have even done it if Bruce had the 10 of clubs.
Would that be what Doyle Brunson calls the post-oak bluff, where you actually make it look like a value bet, but you're bluffing?
Yeah, but you have to remember what the strength of your opponent's hand is, because there's just some hands where you're not going to get them to fold, and that bet size for sure is not big enough to make Bruce lay his hand down.
More poker from the Majestic Star Casinos when we come back.
Welcome back to the HPT here from the Majestic Star Casino in Gary, Indiana. It's time to get back to final table action. We'll send things over to Freddie and Maria.
And since the start of shorthanded play, it looks like we finally have a new chip leader. Vu Huang has 5.3 million, and Bob Chow didn't fall too far from the top spot, as he has 4.6 million. Bruce Nee has 4.3 million, and Daryl is our short stack with just over 1.8 million and 23 big blinds.
Blinds continuing on at 40 and 80,000 with a 10K ante. You know, Bruce Chow came to the final table with a chip lead, lost it for maybe a hand or two last week on the HPT. He just lost it again. Let's see if he can get it back. Action's going to start with Vu.
Well, it's not surprising considering Bob is probably the most active player at the table. His chip stack is going to swing a little bit here and there, but I assume that he's going to keep up the aggression nonetheless.
Vu makes 185,000. Action folds around to Bruce Nee, and he is going to make the call from the big blind with Queen 9 suited. And here comes the flop.
The flop is 8, Jack 8, Rainbow. Neither player has connected with this flop. Bruce, however, does have a gut shot. A 10 would give him a straight. Vu still has the best hand here with King High.
Vu was the pre-flop raiser. Let's see if he continuation bets. He does not.
I like that he checks behind here because this flop definitely hits a lot of Bruce's calling range pre, and it's good to have some pot control.
Well, the turn comes to 10, which gives Bruce the straight, and he's going to go ahead and bet that straight for 160,000. Vu with second pair, probably going to make the call, I would think.
And Bruce definitely bets an amount where I think Vu, after checking back the flop, can easily make this call for 160,000.
And he does.
Call has been made. Call has been made. Go ahead and see the river card.
And here comes the river. Oh no, the 10 of spades giving Vu the boat, crushing Bruce's straight. Maria, this could get bloody.
Well, Bruce smartly checks it over to Vu. I think he doesn't like the double paired board. Feels that he might be beat now by a full house. And Vu's just trying to think how much he could extract from him. I think maybe a little under half pot, somewhere in the neighborhood of 380K would probably induce Bruce to call, but we don't know. We'll have to see if Bruce is going to make a tight laydown.
You guys have a lot of fun.
490.
Makes it 490. And let's see if Bruce can get away from a straight or not.
This would be a pretty big fold for Bruce, but it is a double paired board, and Bruce wasn't able to make that laydown.
You can't blame the guy for not laying down a straight when you're four-handed. Even though an 8 or a 10 kills you, he just had to look him up to make sure. And I think this is a hand where Vu's image got him paid a little bit.
I think Vu's been fairly active as well, and Bruce is definitely giving him enough credit and capability to bluff him on the river. So it was a difficult spot for Bruce, and he just couldn't lay his hand down.
You know, Maria earlier commented, Bob loses a pot, he's smiling and laughing. We just saw Bruce take a bad beat, he's smiling and laughing. Vu's been joking the whole time. These guys, they're playing for $171,000. It feels like a home game here.
I know, this is the friendliest final table I've ever seen. Good for them.
Yeah.
And you're like in the far corner too.
I know, I've been sequestered over here. I only wake up when you guys need some chips.
We could spread out, actually.
Vu makes it $250,000 or 250,000 with pocket sixes. Daryl's gonna fold.
You're gonna get tired of saying that. A fold by Daryl. Fold by Daryl. Fold.
And I see Bob getting a little bit more aggressive with his hand, whereas we saw Bruce call with ace-10 earlier. I think Bob might actually 3-bet with the same hand. And I think he's deciding whether or not he wants to 3-bet or call, but he opts to call. It's a great hand. It'll play really well post-flop. Bob and Vu are the two most active players at this final table, so I think they want to see a couple more streets.
The flop is 2 queens with a 4, 2 diamonds on the flop, so Bob has the nut flush draw.
Vu has 2 pair, queens and sixes. Bob checks it over to Vu.
Now, no way Bob is folding a nut flush draw here.
And I would say that it would be better for Bob to check call Vu's bet here than to check raise. There's no reason to really bloat the pot when you do have the nut flush draw, and you could possibly have the best hand. Ace high on this board is looking pretty good as well.
Bob is going to make the call here. So on to the turn we go. It brings a jack of clubs. Right now, Vu has the best hand still. Bob's going to check. What do you do in this spot, Maria? Do you fire that second bullet, or do you go ahead and check over to the turn?
I think it's a pretty easy check back on the turn. I think that it's very likely that Bob could be slow playing a queen here. There's no real reason to turn your sixes into a bluff. They have showdown value. but I don't know if Vu thinks he's value betting here or trying to bluff Bob off of a better pair. I don't really like this bet on the turn. I think it's only going to cost him more, and he's only going to build this pot into a bigger pot unnecessarily in the long run.
Well, Bob has a gut shot straight draw. He has the nut flush draw. And he doesn't know it, but he has two overcards to the sixes. The river comes the six of diamonds, which is completely sick. Now Vu has another full house. Bob has the nut flush. Bob is going to check over to Vu.
That was the one diamond Bob doesn't want to see, except he doesn't know it yet. And now I think Bob might just check call, though, because the fact that, yeah, Vu betting the turn in the river makes it look like he already had a full house.
Bob sees the bad news and just throws his arm up in the air. He can't believe it. No one did anything wrong here, Maria. The jack just popped up and bit him, didn't it?
Well, it looks like Vu bloated that pot in his favor as he put out a hefty bet on the river, got paid off by Bob, and unfortunately for Bob, he made his hand when Vu made an even better hand.
More poker from the Majestic Star Casinos here in Gary, Indiana, when we come back. Welcome back to the HPT. As you can see, the Majestic Star not disappointing on an exciting final table. Let's get back to the action.
And after a nice little rush of cards there, you see that Vu Huang has extended his chip lead. He's nearing the 9 million mark, and his closest competitor, Bob, only has 2.6 million. Bruce is not too far behind Bob, and Daryl's our short stack with 1.8 million.
Daryl with just 19 big blinds left in his stack. Blinds are continuing on now at 50 and 100,000 with a 10,000 chip ante. And Bruce Nees first up to bat. He'll fold over to Vu. Vu, a semi-retired entrepreneur, left the corporate world for poker. Says he's going to use his prize money for drinking, partying, and paying off debts. He made it a point to let us know it would be in that order. Like this guy a lot.
He looks down at 6-5 of spades and seems like he's going to come in with an open to 215,000.
Daryl looks down at 6-7 of clubs, and he's going to go ahead and call the raise. And Bob's going to fold. One of the few hands we've seen Daryl get involved with since we've been four-handed. Here comes the flop.
Flop is 4-9-9, a couple of spades. Vu has flopped a flush draw. Daryl doesn't really have the stack size where he could be playing all the way to the river post-flop, so I see him giving up on this hand fairly easily. The turn is the 5 of diamonds. Daryl checks it over to Vu, and now Vu has paired his 5 for 9s and 5s, but Daryl now has turned an open-ended straight draw.
$315.
And Vu is going to fire here, makes it 315,000 to go. And Daryl with an open-ended draw. Getting the right price, I think, to see a river card.
Yeah, I think Daryl could possibly be priced in here to call, but like I said about his stack size, it's costing him so many of his valuable chips to call. And if he doesn't hit and he check folds, then it just seems like he's losing chips unnecessarily.
And the river delivers the 7 of spades. That gives Daryl second 2 pair, but Vu has now hit the flush.
And this is just another unfortunate predicament for Daryl. He is just losing chips slowly, and he might end up calling him on the river.
480,000 is the bet to Daryl.
I know that Daryl might be thinking that Vu wouldn't check back the flop with a flush draw, but unfortunately he did, and it's causing Daryl to call, and now Daryl's going to be even shorter stack.
Over 2 million in that pot going into the chip leader's stack.
Crickets are in.
And you're right, Maria. Daryl now down to just practically nothing, and here he is. He's going to go all in with pocket tens. It's not a whole lot.
So now Daryl moves his 10 big blinds in with pocket tens. This is obviously a huge hand, four-handed. Hopefully he will get some action.
And once again, Ace King makes another appearance at this final table, and Bob Chow's going to push his chips in the middle to isolate. Bruce quickly folds.
Hey, one time?
Yeah, one time. Go ahead.
Boo hoping to wake up with something. He wakes up with a whole lot of garbage. And here we go, Maria. It's a pocket pair versus Big Slick for Daryl's tournament life. He's going to the flop ahead, but you can see statistically it's a coin flip.
And the flop is Queen 9 King, and that is going to put Bob in the lead, and Daryl is pretty much out of this tournament. He's going to need to hit a 10 or a jack in order to stay alive.
Needing a jack to make a straight.
Daryl, the Chief Information Officer, hoping to find a jack or a 10. Not on the turn. It's a 7 of diamonds. So now Daryl down to the last street with only a handful of outs.
I think he just wants a hug.
Oh, I don't.
He will be eliminated.
He's thinking about he dumped out 8 million chips. I mean, that's what he's thinking about. He has to win one of these.
The river is the 4 spades. It's not going to do it for Daryl, and he will be our 4th place finisher.
Daryl was pretty quiet at this final table, but he hung on for a nice payday of just over $48,000. Not bad for his first HPT final table and only his 2nd career cash. Let's see if that's a catapult to fame and fortune like my friend Maria.
Welcome back to the HPT, coming to you from Gary, Indiana, and the Majestic Star Casinos. It's anybody's game.
And it looks like Vu Huang is just pulling further and further away from his competitors. He's just over the 10 million chip mark now, and Bob and Bruce have a lot of catching up to do.
Bob Chow was the one-time chip leader. Now he's a little over a 2-to-1 dog on getting that chip lead back. Bruce Nee, with just 18 big blinds left in his stack, is going to have to make a move or pick up some cards pretty quick here. Blinds continuing on at 50 and 100,000 with a 10,000 chip ante.
Bruce is on the button with King 5, and you really just can't be folding King 5 on the button here three-handed. I think that this is what I was saying about him picking up his aggression. You have to be opening up your starting hand range quite a bit. King 5 is more than enough to be raising on the button, and otherwise you're just never getting involved in any pots, and if you're not involved, you can't accumulate chips.
This is the first hand at this final table I've seen anybody limp and check the option. Vu and Bob, blind versus blind, going at it here. Neither player has any clue what the other one's holding.
And the flop is 7-10 deuce, a couple of diamonds. Vu has flopped top pair with a queen kicker here. Bob has flopped 2nd pair, so I expect that there's going to be 3 streets of value going Vu's way. He bets 135,000.
Bob with 2nd pair, not going anywhere.
Considering this is a limped pot, I just assume that Bob's going to end up looking him up as long as the turn in the river doesn't bring any scare cards. The deuce of clubs is a pretty safe card, and it looks like Vu is going to fire yet again.
245.
You are correct, Maria. 245,000 is the bet. And another call from Bob.
And the river is the 3 of clubs. And I think if I were Vu, I would have to know that I have the best hand and I need to extract maximum value. So what would Bob be willing to pay off here?
485.
And 485,000 is a decent size bet. I would like to see him bet a little bit more. It looks like Bob has exactly what he has, which is 2nd pair. His hand is pretty face up. If I were Vu, I would have tried to extract a little more value.
Well, will Bob Chow pay him off, or will he make a disciplined fold?
Okay, I fold. I want to see this.
He makes the disciplined fold. Good for him.
I'm surprised at that fold, considering once Bob calls on the turn, the river really doesn't change much. I was expecting him to pay him off.
And you heard Bob say, I want to see your hand. These guys had a gentleman's agreement at the start of the day that they each get one show me what you got card. And Bob cashed his in there. Blinds are moving up to 60 and 120,000 with a 15,000 chip ante. Action in this hand starts with Bob on the button. He's going to fold over to Bruce now. Last time we saw Bruce at an HPT final table was way back in 2007, HPT's 3rd season. We did an event at the Hooters Casino.
260.
Bruce is going to raise it up from the small blind with Jack 6 of hearts. He makes it 260,000 to go.
Over to Vu. He's got 3-4 of diamonds.
I think in these blind versus blind situations, especially shorthanded, you do have to open up your range quite a bit. I think that if Vu believes him to be a better player post-flop than Bruce, he's going to call here and try to take the pot away from him.
Well, Vu might have your thinking in his mind. He is going to just flat call the raise. And the flop comes 4-5 Jack with a couple of clubs, so both players hit a piece of this.
Bruce has flopped top pair, and Vu has bottom pair here.
And Bruce is going to lead out, makes it 250,000.
And if I were Vu, I'd probably just call once and reevaluate on the turn. I don't think Bruce has shown himself to triple barrel bluff very often, so I think Vu knows he could get Bruce to shut it down if he calls the flop if Bruce doesn't have anything.
The turn is an 8 of clubs, kind of a scary card. Bruce is going to check. Let's see if Vu takes advantage of that, Maria. Tries to represent the flush.
I think the 8 of clubs is definitely a good scare card for Vu to try to represent as it completes the flush and a couple straight draws from the flop. Let's see if Bruce has the fortitude to call him down, though.
365.
And as expected, he is going to bet. Makes it 365,000.
I think I've noticed a bit of a problem with Vu's bet sizes. I think he could elicit more folds if he was betting a little bit bigger on the turn and the river. This is definitely not going to be enough to get Bruce to fold, I don't think.
Bruce does make the call, so onto the river we go. Bruce has the best hand. It is the 10 of diamond. Bruce continues to have the best hand, but let's see if Vu can push him off. Bruce does check over. And Vu checks behind, saying, I'm done with this hand. Let's just let the cards do the speaking. And he's going to see a pair of 4s are beat by Bruce's pair of jacks. And almost 1.8 million is going to be delivered into Bruce's stack. A Poker Life with Doyle Brunson, one of our new favorite features here on the HPT, where the legend himself tells stories of his life and the game and how it shaped him. Here is his story of his first impression of Vegas, brought to us by our friends at Ace Play Poker.
When I first came to Las Vegas, they were so easy I couldn't believe it. I know for 7 years, people find it hard to believe. My first 7 years here, I didn't know how to play limit. I'd never played limit until I was 50 years old. I just sat around waiting for the no limit game, and I actually don't think I ever lost in a no limit hold'em game where the predominant chip was a black chip. You know, the real high games, we called them. I might have lost in some of the green chip games, the $25 chip games, but it was to the point where all the players thought I was cheating some way. Wasn't no reason to cheat. I mean, they were just such bad players that it was a bunch of novices against professionals. There were 2 or 3 guys from Texas moved up here about the same time. This guy from Tennessee, Long Goody, James Roy, Sarge, Puggy, and it was like a strawberry patch. I mean, we all won a lot of money.
Thanks for coming back to the HPT. The action is hot. Let's get right back to it.
Here's a look at the updated chip counts. Vu Huang is still the chip leader, although he did make a few missteps. He's still well over 8 million. Bruce Nee has chipped up a little bit to 4.4 million, and Bob Chow is on the short stack with 2.8 million, just under 24 big blinds.
Blinds going up now. They're 80 and 160 with a 20,000 chip ante. Action will start on Bruce Nee, and he wakes up with pocket jacks. I hate jacks. I loathe jacks.
That's because you don't know how to play jacks after the flop.
That's exactly right. I do not know. You raise it like Bruce is about to do to 375. If he gets called and overcards come, what do you do?
I know, Fred, but that's one of the mysteries of poker. You're going to have to figure out what your opponent has, right? You can't just let them bluff you every time.
That's my weak link.
I call.
And Bob is going to call with Queen 6 from the big blind. So you have to teach me that, how to know what your opponents are holding. That's one lesson you haven't taught me yet. Here comes the flop.
That might take more time than we have, Fred. Flop is 4 queen, queen, 2 hearts, and Bob has massively outflopped Bruce. And unfortunately for Bruce, this is the kind of flop that jacks are just going to get stuck in.
Bruce does go all in. Bob snap calls him, and Bruce is going to see he just got crushed on the flop here by queen 6.
I guess this is an example of where the donk lead works in inducing your opponent to go all in. And if Bruce wants to eliminate Bob here in 3rd place, he's going to need to catch one of the remaining 2 jacks in the deck.
Bob got lucky on the flop. He needs to avoid being unlucky on the turn and the river here. Bruce hoping something can happen. Maybe even running hearts would be okay with him. Bob's just hugging the whole rail for luck right now.
Turn is the 8 of clubs. No help to Bruce. Bob just needs to fade one more card on the river, and he will double up.
Bob holding on to his beautiful wife, hoping to fade one more street and double up.
The river is 4 diamonds, and Bob will indeed double up, and this hand should cripple Bruce. It's a pretty unfortunate setup here.
See, that's why I hate jacks. Because you get handcuffed with them more often than not, and you end up getting into a debacle like that.
But you forgot the part where your opponent has to get really lucky on the flop as well.
Maybe I'm just snake bit. Blinds continue at 80 and 160,000 with a 20,000 chip ante. And Maria, you're right about Bob being now an extreme short stack. He's almost going to be all in with just the blinds here. Vu's going to raise it to 345,000 from the button. Bob quickly folds, and yep, why not? He's got the Motown. Bruce says he's all in. Vu makes the easy call, and Bruce is going to see, Maria, that he is yet again in a bad way here.
Yeah, it's just been an unfortunate series of hands for Bruce, and now his tournament life is on the line, and he's dominated. He's going to need to hit a jack or possible 4-card flushes in order to stay alive.
We're trying to fade the Motown in Gary, Indiana.
I threw it away.
The flop is 4 ace 9 2 hearts. Vu has flopped a flush draw. Bruce is in really bad shape here. Bruce is going to need to hit a 2-outer. He needs to hit a jack that is not the jack of hearts.
The turn is the 2 of diamonds. No help to Bruce, and as Maria just said, he needs to find a non-heart jack or a miracle 3 on the river would chop this pot. Here comes the river. It's a 10 of spades, and that is going to do it for Bruce Nee, making his 2nd HPT final table appearance. Last time was back in 2007, and he's cashing big for over $69,000.
Well, when I doubled up with the King 10, I felt it gave me a shot. Winning it is still a long way to go, only because it just, I think at that time we still had 5 or 6 players. So, yeah, no, I had no delusions about it. These guys are great players, and they don't give it up easy, as you can see by the effort that was put into this. So, no, great experience, and very, very, very satisfied.
Life-changing money and the coveted championship is on the line. We'll be back to the action right after this. Thanks for coming back to the HPT. We are heads up for our newest champion and over $170,000 going to one of these 2 gentlemen.
Here's a look at the chip counts going into heads-up play. Vu Huang has the chip lead with over 9.5 million. Bob Chow is not that far behind him with 6.6 million. It's really anybody's game right now.
What a matchup this will be. Maria, you've said it before. These are the 2 most aggressive players at this final table. The 2 having probably the most fun at this final table. The 2 that have the most history with each other at this final table. Here they are, heads up for over $171,000. The button acts first, heads up. That is Bob Chow, and he is first to start this hand with a whole lot of nothing, really.
And this is like the hand that I was saying. It belongs in the folding range. I think that for as aggressive as Bob is, I think he could definitely still fold this hand on the button.
He's going to just go ahead and limp into the pot heads up. Maria, your thoughts on limping heads up?
Well, the reason I don't like limping is that's not a hand that's really going to flop all that great. And if you get raised by Vu here pre-flop, then you're just intent on mucking it, and it's just wasting another 60,000 chips for yourself. And you have to remember, when you're playing heads up, a net loss for you is a direct net gain for your opponent, and you really have to be aware of how that's going to affect your stack sizes.
I hope everybody at home watching HPT right now has pulled out a notebook and a pen to take notes on Maria Ho's analysis here. Vu's going to check over to Bob. Bob is going to check on the 7-5-8 flop. The turn is an ace. So Bob still has the open-ended straight draw. Vu now second pair. And a gut shot draw.
220.
Vu bets 220,000. And I'm a little shocked, actually, that Bob decided to check back the flop.
Raise.
And especially since he's deciding that he wants to raise this turn on a semi-bluff.
Yeah, Bob has kind of played this hand a little bit out of character from what we've seen. But maybe he's just shifting gears heads up to kind of throw a monkey wrench in Vu's thinking, huh?
And I do think that this is going to be a hard raise for Vu to call, but you have to remember that Bob did limp in pre-flop, and if Vu takes that as an indication that he doesn't have an ace in his range, then he might just make this call. I think Bob's line is a little less credible since he limped in, but like I said, once you've established different ranges, it is possible that Bob could have limped in with a big ace there, but I think Vu's just thinking it's more unlikely than likely.
Well, it's all a moot point now. The 4 falls on the river, giving Bob the straight. Vu smartly checks over to him.
800.
And 800 is the bet from Bob, trying to get some value out of the straight.
And I think this will become a pretty easy fold for Vu. This is a very, very wet board now. The flush got there, the straight got there. I don't see why he would want to look him up with just one pair here.
Especially second pair.
I call.
Call has been made.
Straight.
And he is going to make the call despite your analysis, Maria, and he's going to see he is beat bad.
Straight to the 8.
Yeah. 3 million in chips going into the stack of Bob Chow. So a big swing pot going Bob Chow's way as blinds continue at 80 and 160,000 with a 20,000 chip ante.
And something that Vu should be keeping in mind is, although Bob is extremely, extremely aggressive, that doesn't mean that you should always be paying him off, even in spots where it doesn't really look like your hand's any good. And I just hope that Vu doesn't make the mistake of paying Bob off too much during the rest of this heads-up match.
Well, Bob's going to make it 330,000 here. And Vu peels back 810.
Go.
And he's going to make the call.
And the flop is deuce, 9, queen, 2 diamonds. It's giving Bob a flush draw. Vu has a gut shot straight draw. Jack would give him a straight.
Could be an action flop here. Vu's going to check. And Bob with the flush draw is going to semi-bluff with 380,000 chip bet.
And one thing I will say about Bob's post-flop play is that he does do a good job of mixing it up. We've seen him check behind with draws. We've seen him semi-bluff with draws. So it is very difficult, especially in heads-up play, to put him on a hand.
The turn delivers the ace of spades. No help to either player. Could be a scare card.
Vu checks again. And I think if Bob fires another bullet here, he could take it down without having to hit his flush, but he instead opts to check.
The river is the jack of diamonds. Oh, Maria Ho, look at this. Bob hits the flush. Vu hits the straight.
Big, big trouble for Vu. And he decides to lead right into Bob. And now Bob is just thinking, I'm going to raise. I just don't know how much.
2.6 million.
And he is going to raise 2.6 million. A little over 2 million for Vu to call, and he is going to make that call. You can't blame a guy for not getting away from a straight, can you? Heads up. More heads up poker from the Majestic Star Casino when we come back. Thanks for coming back to the HPT. The players in Chicagoland know how to move the chips. I'm having a hard time keeping up. Let's get back to the final table.
And as you can see, it's a bit of a Bob show right now. He has overtaken the chip lead with 9.8 million. Vu still has plenty of chips to play with at 6.3 million. We're gonna have to see how it plays out though, because Bob is very dangerous when he's hitting cards.
He is indeed dangerous, Maria. The last couple of hands, he's shipped in about 8 million in chips. And here we go, blinds going up again. They're 100, 200,000 with a 30,000 chip ante. Action will be on Mr. Chow. His holding is Queen 9. Both these players with a lot of big tournament experience. Both these players with a lot of history with each other outside of the HPT. Bob's going to make it 415,000.
Vu's gonna make the call with 3-4 of diamonds. And the flop is ace, deuce, 7, 2 diamonds. They both have flopped a flush draw. Vu with the inferior flush draw, but he also does have a wheel draw to go with it. He checks it over to Bob.
5-10.
And Bob is gonna fire a little over $500,000 here, and Maria with a one ending draw for the wheel and a flush draw. I don't see Vu going anywhere.
I don't expect to see Vu fold here. It's just a matter of if he wants to get all the chips in right now or not.
Mullen.
And he chooses to go with the ladder. He gets all the chips in the middle.
Call.
And Bob makes the call just on a pure draw with no pair or anything.
Oh my God.
And you can see Vu not too happy with that call.
Yeah, because as of now, Bob still has the best hand with just queen high. He has the better flush draw of the two. Vu's going to need to hit a non-diamond 5 or a 4 or a 3 and have the flush not come in order to survive.
That's a tall order, it seems like. Let's see what happens on the turn as these players pace back and forth around the final table, waiting for their fate.
We just called 5 of diamonds.
The man called it right there. 5 of diamonds.
Good luck, sir.
Good luck, man.
I can't get away from that.
I know. I knew that. When you went all in, I had a feeling. I just didn't know how high your. I was second nuts according to the board. Second nuts, man.
Here comes the turn.
The turn is the Jack of Hearts. No improvement for either player. Bob's queen high is still in the lead.
Big. I don't care. Anything big.
Bob hoping to be our newest HPT champion. Vu hoping to hit the card he needs to stay alive.
10 or higher.
Here comes the river card.
Yes!
The river is the Jack of Diamonds, and Bob is going to do it. He is going to eliminate Vu in second place and become our newest HPT champion here at Majestic Star in Gary, Indiana.
Boy, Maria, both these players fought like champions. Unfortunately, only one could be champion. James Larson standing by with the one who fell a little bit short. He's with Vu.
All right, thanks so much, guys. We started with 520. We get down to heads up. You don't win it, you finish second. But talk about your play here at this final table.
I think I played pretty good. Made some moves. Yeah, I got value for a lot of my fucking big hands that I had, and then had the spots I had to bluff, and then spots I didn't and got caught a couple of times. But play-wise, I think I played actually pretty good, especially compared to the field and the players at the final table. So. I mean, obviously the outcome was as close to impeccable as possible. So,
well, there's always another HPT event right around the corner, and we hope to see you. Congratulations on second place, and enjoy your cash. We will send it back to Maria and Fred.
Thank you very much, James. Out of 577 players, one man stands alone. His name is Bob Chow. Congratulations to Bob Chow, our new HPT champion. He's back down on the floor with James Larson with the money in his hand.
All right, thanks so much, guys. I am now joined with our newest HPT champion. Please give it up for Mr. Bob Chow. All right, Bob, I know it's been a long day, a long night, a long weekend. This final table over 11 hours. How do you feel right now? It's all over. You've got just over 170K in your hands. What's going through your mind?
Well, I've been told that since I won the main event 2 years ago, I was a one-hit wonder. So this ends that right here.
And what a crazy final table it was. You were up, you were down. Did you think it slipped away at any time?
No, I mean, I felt confident the whole way. I thought that heads up, I may have a little more experience than Fu, and I think if I just kept being patient, I could grind him down. That's what I think.
All right, no more questions. Let's just do some celebrating. He is our champion here from Gary, Indiana, and the Majestic Star Casinos. One more time, give it up for Mr. Bob Chow.
Thank you very much, James, and congratulations again to our newest HPT champion, Bob Chow. Now, do you think you have what it takes to sit under the bright lights and national stage that is the HPT? Well, then log on to hptpoker.com and find an event near you. For Maria Ho and James Larson, I'm Fred Bevel. We'll see you next time right here on the HPT.